Hello.
And welcome back to the Bible Study Girl podcast. This is Sarita, but you probably know me as the Bible Study Girl. And trying to imitate my fabulous hello is none other than the executive producer of this podcast, Bible Study Brother.
What's good, people? It's Bible Study Brother, also known as Icarus Gray, over at Gray Area Anime, and this is the most wonderful podcast of your day.
So let's get right into it. If you've been listening here consistently, then you know that we have really embraced the initial concept for the Bible Study Girl podcast, and that is that we recap the blogs that I've written and we just have the opportunity to talk about them in more detail. Today's podcast topic is that a word? And you can find Is That a Word on BibleStudyGirl.com. There's a ton of content on BibleStudyGirl.com. So the easiest way for you to get to this blog is to type the magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner and type in Is That a Word? ? And it will take you directly to this blog, so you don't have to spend an incredible amount of time searching around, because like I said, now don't get me wrong, feel free to browse around on BibleStudyGirl.com, but I'm just trying to get you to the point where you can know what we're talking about in today's episode.
Also, if you're following along with us, we are currently in September, and it's September 24th of 2019 of where we are from this blog post, because like I said, this is also a time capsule that we're recapping currently in the year 2022 of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
And amen. I was going to say that too. I think I keep talking about it on a podcast, but I think it is the original intent of the podcast was to talk about the blogs in detail. But I think having this big gap in space between the time the blog was actually written to go back and talk about it gives better perspective. And honestly, going back and reading these things really have been speaking into my life and where I am right now today, my current life situation. So for that, I am grateful and I'm thankful. Okay, so what was the blog Is That a Word all about? Well,
I have a analogy for it.
Okay, go ahead.
This blog was about the grass is not greener on the other side if you've never looked at your own grass.
I think that is a comparable. I think it's for me too. Honestly, I will say it's always interesting for me to see how you interpret it as a reader versus me as the writer, even though I do get to reread it. So that might be something we stick with. You tell me what your interpretation is, and I'll tell you what my intent was, what the heart was, or what it meant for me. So that's an interesting interpretation because that's not where I was going. And actually, Bible study mama's calling me right now. Okay, we're going to have a short tangent and an aside. I'm going to say this. I'm not going to pick up and talk to her. But I am very intentional about not letting her know what day we're recording our podcast because I want to have the liberty to call her and prank her. So that's why I'm not answering the phone. And she'll be like, that's why you rejected my call that day? Yes, honey. That is why. I just talked to her before I started recording specifically for this reason. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I think it's great. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do going forward. I'll let you tell me what it was about, and then I can talk about what
you feel it's really about. Okay, so let me finish then, because I ain't gonna just leave it on the analogy. So,
okay,
what I got from it is we can so often look at what we want God to bless us with at this moment that we can get real disrespectful about what he does bless us with. So if you're praying for a husband, and the first thing God does is say, you gotta go work this job in Antarctica by yourself for the next 2 years. Like it's this great opportunity, like it's the best opportunity. Like you ain't got to suffer. Like the place you're staying is the most well insulated, warm place in America, but because it's not, you know, a singles retreat that allows you to meet your husband, you like, nah, this can't be what God wants for me, because it's not what you then want for yourself. Is what I got from, the blog post, is like, obedience ain't always the thing you want first. So that was my total take on the blog post.
And I will tell you this too. My pastor, this goes into my mind train, y'all. I'm tired. Let me let me put that out there. I am exhausted, but it makes hearing you say that, and also just thinking about, like, when I initially started writing the blog BibleStudyGirl.com, I did not make a big announcement. I didn't go to church and hand out flyers. I didn't say to people, hey guys, I really would like for you to go to my blog and read it because I think it's awesome. I was obedient in the fact that I wrote the blog, I made a post on Facebook, but it was not every day. When I would write the blog, I would just post it on Facebook, but I wasn't going around soliciting people to read it. Literally, my one post every day was it. And if you don't know by now, I do like to operate in the shadows. It is a place of safety and comfort for me. And so my pastor, as we started going on the blog, and I'm like, Lord, you want me to write a blog every day? I started to freak out and be like, okay, so what am I going to talk about every day? Because everyday writing is a lot, and that's a big commitment. And I was like, well, what is something you do weekly anyway that'll give you content, that you don't have to sit and rock and wait on the Lord? Duh, girl, you go to church every Sunday. So why don't you, while you're paying attention to the sermon, why don't you try to encapsulate what the whole sermon was about? What you got out of the sermon. That don't mean it's what everybody got out of the sermon. I'm just picking the hot points, and I'm going to write about that every Sunday. Again, I'm not making a public announcement. I'm not walking around church saying, hey guys, I really want you to read my blog because it's hot. I'm just being obedient to God and doing what God asked me to do. So somebody at the church read the blog. It must have been Facebook friends with somebody. Somebody told somebody. Anyway, it got to the pastor. You got a member that's writing a blog and recapping your sermon every Sunday. And he said to me, it's always interesting. He's like, I know what I feel, when I'm writing a sermon and what the intent is. So it's always interesting, to get what the member is getting from what I'm putting out. So you saying that made me think that, and I went all the way around the world to tell that story. But I like
that's
to
a
give
good story, because I love that story.
I like to give backstory and content, and that's part of my problem. And I will say that's also a problem I had with BibleStudyGirl.com, sitting down writing blogs. I can be long-winded, and I didn't want the blog to be something that was, now you can spend 15 minutes in the morning. I wanted it to be something you could take, grab quickly, have impact, and go on about your day. It's not a book, which I am writing. It's not a book. It's a little pick up and go,
You just wait till I get in my pre-order now bag, girl. Listen.
And so this, for me, when I was writing this particular blog.
Are you finna get off the story? Hold on real quick. Before you get off
I'm off the story. I'm back the blog, what my intent was when I was writing it. So
okay,
go ahead.
So hold thought. So to finish the thought on this story, the thing about my sister that she doesn't want to realize, but that I told her in the episode before this will be her birthday episode, and you'll hear me tell it to her about accepting and walking in the actual confidence of what God gave to her to do. Boy, I was like the happiest person when she told me that, and I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I was talking about." Because this is going to be that spark that starts shooting things through the roof. Because all you need is one. All you need is one person to share it and pass it on to somebody. And not only like did your pastor notice, he liked it. It wasn't that, you were blaspheming and saying all of these different things, but even what you're asking me to do now, like I said, is just this snowball effect of what got asked of you. Because what he found interesting is what you find interesting. And that's the whole purpose. That's how testimonies grow, because you engage with the person who's receiving. And then the person
Right.
who's receiving carries that somewhere else. And because we stay in engagement, you don't let the language of what the intent was get lost, but you also don't control the message so in such a way that you're not allowing God to give somebody what they specifically need from you.
Need. And that is something that has been very powerful for me. I write it, I put it out there, I leave it on the table. God is going to do whatever he wants to do with it. But it's so interesting to me when people say things to me, this impacted me this way, I felt this way, it might not have been what I was thinking or going through when I wrote it, but it's always good to hear other people say how something helped them. And I find that beneficial. It's also interesting now that we've gotten on this topic when we talk about how things have helped people. Uncle Chauncey was one of my biggest behind the scenes encouragers. Oh Lord, I hope I don't get to cry. He was one of my biggest behind the scenes
It's all
encouragers,
right.
and it would
Take
just
your
be so
time, baby.
random.
Take
He
your
was
time.
he would send me a text message and be like, what you do matters, Oh Lord.
Just take a breath. Take your time, baby. Take your time.
Just don't get tired. Just keep doing it. And, we do this podcast every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a check the numbers girl. I don't know how many folks listen. that's not that's not my bag. And honestly, when we record, I just assume it's gonna be mama and grandma. And I keep it moving. But it touched my heart this weekend because my friend sent me a text message and was like, I'm listening to your podcast right now, and it's always a blessing to me. And I'm like, oh, you listen? It was so sweet to me. And it's just,
Who was listening?
huh?
Who was listening? You ain't got to say like actual names, but who was listening?
I'll tell you when we get
Okay.
off
All
the
right.
air.
All
You
right. All
know
right. All right.
them. Well, since it's just grandma and mama.
Girl.
No, but it's the small things, it's the little things. I think it just touched a nerve because
Take your time, baby. Take your time.
my heart is just so tender right now.
Yeah.
It just touched a nerve because everybody needs encouragement, a little push forward, a little push. But it also made me think this blog today is perfect because I'm going to tell you what my intent was when I wrote the blog or what I was feeling at the time. And then I can tell you how I feel now about the blog.
That's how we'll do. That'll be our new setup. Well, I'll give you a meaning. You tell me what your intent was for the original, and you tell me where you are now, and then we just discuss after. That'll be our new little format.
You like how we having a business meeting out here?
Oh, I love it. I mean, it's confirmation because I was gonna do it anyway. I was just trying to figure out through our conversations like what would lead to the best structure of having like a
Right.
structure for us. And you just did it. And you know, it was like one of those things where
That was the Holy Spirit.
yeah.
So listen, my original intent when I sat down and wrote it, I'm talking a lot about the start of the blog because the start of the blog was so hard for me. That was such a hard yes for me
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, I like to be behind the scenes. I if given the choice, I would be my turtle in my shell. I would read books all day,
Mm-hmm.
and eat food and not really interact with a lot of people.
Would you ascend
Um,
and be a bookworm?
I would be I would be a total bookworm. Because a lot of times talking to people and really exposing myself and who I am, it makes me very uncomfortable. You know, we talked about being uncomfortable before we started recording, but and that's how I know this is where God wants me to be because it's not something that comes to me um, in an easy way. It's not something that's super. I don't know. It's not something that I would naturally choose. So I speak a lot about how difficult starting the blog in general was for me. This is that a word blog is enmeshed in the story of how BibleStudyGirl.com got started. I went to a women's conference at my church. My cousin wouldn't go with me. Tamika put a foot down. She was like, I ain't going up but that didn't stop me from going because I knew there was something, I didn't know what, but God was really pushing me, go to the women's conference, you know. And people quite frequently will see me and Tamika together. But this is something I will do things. If the Lord tell me to do it, I'll do it. You know, if I'm in obedience mode, I'm in obedience mode. So I went to the conference and I got a word. And actually the tagline for Bible Study Girl comes from the conference. You should read the blog. But the tagline for Bible Study Girl comes from the conference. And the tagline, excuse me, for Bible Study Girl is that I have something special to offer the world. And I believe it to be true. I know it to be true. It has shown to be true in my life. You really have to read the blog to get the inside story. So for me, writing it at that point, it was a way for me to affirm myself and a way for me really just to show that, okay, God, I heard you. And although I wanted all the word that the other women were getting at the conference, you know, this is the word that you have for me, that I personally have something special to offer the world and I need to walk in it. Okay, so that was the intent. I could tell you reading the blog did something completely different for me today than it did then. Back then it was affirming, okay, yes, you have something special to offer the world. But I would say now my take on it really is more in line with Bible Study Brothers' take. You know, we, especially when you grow up in church, you know, a lot of times people want to prophesy over you. And I do have a tendency to look around and to see other people's blessings. And I want those blessings to be my own. And that's not necessarily what God has called me for in that particular season. Like, this is what I'm walking you through. You know, this is what I have for you. And so I would say what I'm getting from reading the blog now is that I have to be content with what the word that God gave me. And I have to work on what he told me to work on and not focus on what everybody else is doing. I have to look like, yes, the Lord has given you a word, Sarita. And the word is, I want you to work. I want you to do this in this season. Don't worry about all the other stuff. So it's completely different than where I started with the writing of this blog, but it hits me in a completely different way. today when I read it, like I have a specific assignment for you, and I need you
Mm-hmm.
to walk in that. Quit looking at what other people have, how other people are doing. It really makes me think about last week's episode when Kane was asking me, where is your idea of what you should have by this age or where you should be? Where does that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think last week I said it's really I really don't like. Okay, I'm gonna have to be specific. Like when people are like, you should be this by this age and that by that age, that's not what I based my mindset on where I should be on. I had specific goals that I set for myself in life. For me personally, I wanted to be married by the time I was 25,
We
and I
shared that.
wanted, huh?
We shared that.
Really?
Oh yeah, because I knew Mama wasn't gonna let me like immediately get married to Kenayata like when we went to college if we had still been able to be together. But I was like, so we'll probably try and get married like, or it was somewhere around there. It was like 20, it might have been 25. I'm pretty sure it was 25, but it was like we was gonna get out of school. I think I had factored in masters or like 2 years of trying to like going straight through,
Right.
which is
To give
the
you time to
uniform.
just get established.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be married by the time I was 25 because part of that was the 25 goals because I knew after I graduated from college, I was going to have to go to grad school. And so I'm 24 by the time I finish grad school. That would give me a year to plan a wedding. Okay, boom. Be married by the time you're 25. And also I was in a relationship. I wasn't just making like
vision
random
board,
goals.
vision board, marriage goals.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I can wait till then. But it was a trash relationship. We've talked about it in the past. You
So
guys,
many times.
I'm not gonna rehash it.
But
So
that was one more thing that I wanted to commend you on. That's something that I don't know. You probably you've looked at it before, but you were writing these blogs at your most scarred at that time.
oh yes, I was
Like,
deeply hurt.
so to think of the testimonies and sermons you wrote in, like, you were preaching to yourself and to the future you at the same time, or God was
I
preaching through you.
was, and
And
I thank
that's,
God that I was
yeah,
obedient in that. Like, great points, brother. That's
like,
all I got to say.
yeah, you know. But I
So
yeah.
married by 25 was my
Mm.
first goal, and then I didn't want to have kids till I was 30. I wanted to
Really?
wait. Yes, my goal was to have a
Uh,
kid
we have the
when I was
same
30
person.
because I wanted us to have time to just be married
Yep,
and
I was gonna
have
say we're the
fun.
same person.
Like
I
when
knew, I knew immediately once you. I was like, oh no, we're the same. So yeah, of course.
I wanted to have time to be married and have fun. I think having a teen mother and like looking at her life at my age, I'm like, oh, she didn't get to just like have fun. When she got married, she already had me and then she had you like 9 months later. They didn't have that time. And I felt
From
like
when
I
you
could
get
see a
married, we're
look.
5 years apart. Y'all might hear that in a weird way.
Yeah, we are 5 years apart. So I was four when she got married to your dad. And I mean, ready made family. And I feel like, part of my thinking was, man, they had a lot of cracks in their relationship because they really didn't have time to just be together.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I took it, at the time that I was making these goals for myself. So, how awesome would it be if I get time to just be with my husband? So, those were the kinds of goals I set for myself. And it wasn't based on what, society says, because society, especially if you love the Lord and you save, they be getting married early.
Mm-hmm.
Now the marriage, especially back then, that was almost 20 years ago. That's how old I
Mm-hmm.
am. Anyway, people were getting married young, so that wasn't necessarily something I just had to have. Not that I think that 25 is old, but I think it's older for a
Well,
Christian.
yeah, you think it's set enough. Now, I realized the only part that I think I disagreed is that I did want young because even now to talk about how old mom is or anybody is weird because they don't
Right.
seem like that. Like, I really be having to sit here and think, and I'm like, I gotta go back to when I just was in the moment. Like, y'all just young, y'all are. Because if we started talking about age, then things like the hardest thing, and we talked about this in the grief episode, we talked about this in so many different episodes, but I'm gonna reiterate this. The hardest part about everything that we lost last year is getting back into the moment
Mm-hmm.
and like not trying to romanticize things that can no longer be.
Right.
I remember talking with Kane about like how much I stumbled in having like all the church mothers and stuff that passed before I even got married. That like it hurt because I wanted to show some form of accomplishment, right? Not that the accomplishment of me just being alive was enough for them. Me not being, in the streets or doing all this other stuff was probably enough for them. And seeing me, graduate or seeing me become an actual young man was probably enough for them. But the comparison, as we talk about the blog post and tied to the blog post, you
Right.
start thinking about these things. And it's just different. It's hard because there are so many people that did get to see me get married. In the middle of our beef, you were still there.
Yeah, I was there.
And you could have not been. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I could have not been. I didn't want to go, but they told me I
cause
had
you
to.
on that level of of
I'm a
stubborn.
grudge holder, baby.
But you know, that's something that ain't gonna, it is a moment that I will always have. Even if I'm thinking about it a certain way, I will always be grateful and thankful to you for that. Because I could look at it like, well, it could have been better. We could have been in this situation. We could have been in that situation. And I'm getting further away from that because you were there.
Right.
Like I know how sad I was, and Uncle Chauncey wasn't there to reiterate these sad conversations, but I also understood. Like I couldn't, I wasn't like salty with him because I knew how hard he works and everything else. And Uncle Blue being able to meet Kane was another thing that I'll always be grateful for. But if I don't, I have to make sure that I stop trying to do a comparison kind of thing,
Right. And
and
so
otherwise I won't be able to enjoy it.
really this blog for me, take what God told you to do it, quit looking at even my own preconceived goals or where I want it to be. Like after 30, of course, I definitely had other goals that I've set for myself, places I want to be, things that I want to have accomplished by a certain age. And it has, while I would enjoy being married, I believe, and that is something that I desire, as far as like putting it on a timeline or a timetable, that's something I have not done. But there are, like I was telling Kane last week, there are other goals that I feel like, well, by this age, I want to have this accomplished. So it's not something I'm getting from popular culture. Because some people feel like you have to have a house by a certain age and a this by. That wasn't my thing. My thing was I want the house that I want, and I don't have an age on it, but this is the one I want.
And I say this before because the hardest thing for me was to stop comparing myself to you in a way of
Really?
wanting, bruh, it's hard because like, how easy I thought it would be if I just focused to get to the number, to the high. Like I told you I wanted to give the speech at my high school. Didn't have the work ethic to do it at the time.
At your high school graduation?
Yeah, because I was like, oh no, big sis, I'm gonna do it.
Well, no, we had auditions at my school to give speeches. Like
But
you had to
still,
write your speech.
I didn't even care. It was the number placing that you were in was still one of them. Like, I don't care how big the class was, none of that. I was like,
and I was also gonna say that your class is way bigger than mine.
huge.
Yours is probably like
Massive.
3 times bigger than
Massive.
mine. Like three
but
times
but
bigger
I
than
was
mine.
gonna do it. You know
But if
that.
we here, I'm gonna say this too. Like, if you're gonna compare, you need to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Like, our class sizes were different. Like, the makeup of our schools is
All
different.
no no. All I
But go
knew
ahead.
is that it was gonna make the feat even greater because competition with you is the only competition that feels good. Like
Can
even
I
if
also
I,
say that you make everything a competition, even when
but
it's
you do
not?
too. But you do too. It's fine. I got it from somewhere. That's all I have to say. Because you make things fun. So you're the only like person I can be like, like there were only like two things I knew this ain't happening. Like I told you, your rapping career, I knew I was safe. I knew no
You
matter
don't
what
know
was.
that
I
though. I
know
have
that.
not ever.
I
Oh,
know that.
okay.
I know that.
So okay,
I know that,
I'm gonna let
ma'am.
you be. Okay.
Listen, I will. The next time you come up here, I will give you time. I will send you the beat. I will allow. I will do everything to make you an artist and let you record your song, fam.
Okay.
If that's what you want to do. But let me finish my
But
comparison
also
though.
let me say, I'm gonna let you finish your point, but also don't be crying when I win. I think it's just natural. I have embedded a competition spirit into you
Oh
because even
yes.
going to the grocery store is a competition for us. I'm like, what do you
Oh,
think
the
the total
best
is gonna
competition.
be with tax?
The best competition in the world is going to the store with my mother and sister, and we guess. And I have to like the thing that I know is my sister is a whiz at knowing things. Now, whatever number she gives first, I don't listen to nothing my mama say because my mama gonna give a number, and it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. I'm not saying she can't be right, but I don't use it as a barometer for nothing. Whatever number my sister gives, I'm like, okay, the actual number is somewhere very close, or we did not account for something. And either way, if she goes first, I can get close if I don't if I go first, but normally
My
whoever goes
number
first
definitely
between
helps you
us,
get
oh,
in the
100%.
ballpark.
But whoever
And I have
whichever one of us
learned to
goes
not go
first,
first.
yeah, I
I
was
have
gonna say.
learned to not go first. I'm like, nope, because both of y'all try to get y'all numbers off of me. Nope.
But if I go first, you normally end up getting it pretty much, or I like have to like go real hard and get the actual number, and I'd be $10 off. I'd be mad, but that's the
And
fun
it's
thing
not,
about the
I
competition.
do want to make this clear. It's not a game we play every time. It's not like I sit there and I'm like, okay, we're going in the store. Let me keep a running tab. It's
Oh
just a
no,
fun little impromptu, like,
yeah,
let's do
it's
it.
time to do this. But we have games about everything.
We do.
So,
Even when I went to visit you in
oh,
Tacoma,
oh
the
man,
gas
you know,
game.
girl,
Anyway,
I have another
also,
game
let
that
me
I'm
tell.
starting at the start of next month. By the way, because you have started it with me, and you don't even know that you started it with me. So,
Okay, last tangent. I'm gonna tell you. I started to send you and mama a text Sunday because I went
huh,
to go get gas. I
yeah.
have that thing on my gas. And I started to send y'all a picture and be like, it's on everybody's car. It's an inside joke. Anyway,
Oh
go
my
ahead.
God! See, I told you, and you wanted to. You tried to shame me, man.
I did.
Thanks
I
to
tried to
my
shame
mama
you.
who
Okay.
who helped me solve the puzzle. Cause you know, okay, we'll talk about it. When we
Yeah,
stump the doodle, we'll bring this up so y'all will
we'll
know
bring
what we're
that
talking about.
story up. We'll talk about it then. So back to
Uh,
your point about comparison and competition.
so the whole thing is like everything I saw you do was like the funnest thing in the world for the most part. You were in school plays. Oh my God, this is amazing. You know, you did him over. I was like, where's the guy version of this? Because I would like to
There were
do.
guys there.
Listen, I said very plainly I would do this, and that's something that I know I would have
I
done.
don't know why mama didn't let you do it. I mean, because there were kids of all ages. There were guys
No, I didn't.
there.
I said because she wanted me to have
Oh, you
those.
know why? Because it was teens in action. You weren't a teenager.
And then by the
That's
time I was, she had tried to do all these other camps that were terrible that I got bullied at or something. So didn't like those.
I loved E-Mobile. We had such a great time. Good summers.
But so like when I saw you do that, governor school was another big thing that I was like, oh yeah, it's a wrap. And I'm only applying in one thing, the dumbest thing that I could have ever done. I did not know that you should apply to other things because again, my confidence was such that I come from that. My genetics is such that it's just gonna be. She made it look so
like,
easy. Just let me get
can
in
I
my
tell
bag.
you, I feel like it says on the application, like you should apply in more than one area.
Oh,
I
I'm
know
pretty
I
sure it does. And
applied into.
I think even my drama teacher told me
Right.
that
Like,
I
don't
should do
just
that.
apply in one area if you really want to go. Like,
Like,
apply
yeah.
in all of them. And, you know,
Speaking of, with this episode, shout out to Jada, baby. Yeah,
yeah, she's
yeah.
going to governor's school. Have fun. I loved it. It was exciting.
So, shout out to the family
The
keeping
legacy
the
lives
legacy. It
on.
lives on somewhere. It just wasn't with me. But like that was another thing, thinking about going to college. Like I was gonna get my master's. Like it wasn't gonna be no.
Really?
Listen, fam. I was going to get, because the things that you showed me, the things that you and Tamika showed me, Tamika showed me like, oh, when you got out of college, you can get jobs that do this. You get to do
Right.
this, and then it was, wait. They pay for where you living? You doing what? They let you do who? Oh, for sure. Like, or looking at mama, like the combination of all those things is looking at the misconception I had with jobs in terms of loyalty, meaning, success. And that's not the model, because much like you, which I didn't have in me, you know how to ask for things for yourself. You knew, like even in the mistakes or stumbles you make, you knew what to ask for, and the comparison aspect of all of these different things just showed me, like, at some point and it wasn't until, Kanae came back and I got married and all of that stuff that I was like, hey fam, if you don't make decisions that are just based on what you want to do, you're not going to be happy. And if you also don't
Correct.
make those decisions in a place of not like feeling like you have to make those two happy as well, because if it's in you to do something, it's just in you to do it. If you succeed in it, everybody, on some level will be happy. But if you don't try and then you want to blame somebody for something that you did not do, it's not going to work out.
And also, ultimately, if you're not doing what God asked you to do, not just what makes you happy, I'm a living witness that even though podcasting is uncomfortable for me, it has provided me with some true moments of joy. And I talk about this consistently. Like the fact that I have Tamika's Faith Walk recorded is something that I will forever treasure. But if I hadn't pushed past my uncomfortableness, I would not have that. And so I think at times, I talk about being uncomfortable and God having me do things that are uncomfortable. It always works out for the good. So it's not like he just has me uncomfortable just to have me uncomfortable. He has a greater purpose to it. And so I needed that reminder that I need to be focused on what God wants me to do, listening to his voice,
Right.
and striving for those things instead of looking around me and being like, man, I was praying for that. And that is something that I really wanted. If I'm lined up with what he wants me to do, if I seek him first, then everything else comes to me. And even greater things that I didn't even ask for, I didn't even think of, or didn't even expect,
You
they're
just
added to me.
refreshed my memory on the bigger point of something that I learned. The other thing that I've learned in life, and I didn't tell you about this, about the off camera conversation, but the biggest thing is that when God promises you things, because you had a moment where in a dream or in a vision that he's promised you with kids and a husband and a family. He don't miss his promises. We get so into ourselves that we think that if he's offering us something to get us there, that means that the other promise is broke. He don't
Right.
break promises. He don't lie. That's not the God that we serve. And so often in these comparison things where you're looking at somebody else's thing, you think that in it, quote unquote, you're exchanging something.
Right.
And it's not that he doesn't say no to us, because he does.
Oh, he clearly says no to me. And I know when he's saying no too.
But the thing that is more important than anything is knowing that, again, if he has ever promised it to you, it is something that will happen. If Ruth or any of those people in the Bible are any indication, his timing is different and where it wants to be. Aunt Linda, in and of herself, is an example of it didn't happen. It happened early and then happened again.
Right.
And it's the moment of clarity and understanding that, reminding ourselves that your grass is green enough, and it'll be even greener if you just allow
If
him
you
to water
water
it.
it, man,
If you just let him
you
water and nurture it, that's it.
you do what the work that you were set out to do. And so the tagline for this podcast, like I said, when I wrote it, it spoke to me and it was personal to me. But I want to share it again for everybody that you have something special to offer the world. And as long as you're walking in your gift, you will give the world what they need. And so my prayer and my hope is that you don't get weary in well doing. There seems to be a trend for me, really focusing on obedience. That's my prayer, that you too will be able to be obedient because you do have something special to offer the world. And God is giving you an open invitation. He wants you to share it with people. And I'll say this too, I said earlier that like my nature is to be an introvert, hide in the hidey hole. But that is not what God has called me to do. There has never been a time in my life where I could go somewhere and people leave me alone. It doesn't happen. People are always drawn to me everywhere we go. I went with Sweet Baby to the museum this weekend, and one of my friends that we went with, she was like, it never fails. No matter where we go, people are drawn to you. They want to talk to you. And I was like, it is true. I took
Yo.
Sweet Baby to the park. People are drawn to me. And I'm not saying in like a, people want to tell me their stories. People tell me stuff that I wouldn't tell a stranger, but people feel compelled to that. And I know that they're drawn to the Christ that's in me. So with that being said, like, it may make you uncomfortable, but you do have something to offer the world. And I think it would be beneficial to you and, to people around you to walk in whatever that is he has placed in you.
You pops out here. Because I remember them days where I just be like, dude, do you know everybody?
Like,
Like, this is ridiculous. But it's true. And I think that's a familiar thing with the three of us. Because this is the last tangent and I'll do my thing. But the funniest thing is whenever we go to restaurants. And I think I'm going to thank God for how COVID has changed waitress, waiter interactions with people. It's way more simplified than what it used to be, apparently. But every time we would go, whoever was serving us would have some story to tell. And it
right.
would
And
be a
like,
story that would be like, wait, huh? Like, why?
right.
We went to work out one time with Tamika and we came to PF Chang's and we're sitting here and the guy just felt, I don't like, none of us, like, it wasn't like none of us was buff or anything like that. I didn't look like I was 18 and playing, doing nothing, but he felt compelled to tell us that he had used steroids at some point in his life. And I was just like, why? What is this? Which
I
one of
don't even
these,
remember
bro?
him saying that. I don't. Because people tell me their stories so often. It
Bruh.
don't. I
Yeah, you
didn't.
can't
I
keep
haven't
track.
told you the story about. I haven't told you what the people told me this weekend. But when I tell you, you're gonna be like, yeah. So steroids low on the list of things that people could tell me
Oh
to
no,
make me remember to
for
stick out in my
sure.
mind.
Were you with us with the hysterectomy lady?
Mm-mm.
You okay? That must have been just me and Mama. But
Again, I might have been there, but people really do share a lot of things with me. I don't. People share a lot of things with me.
yeah, I think I'm so slightly thankful that the current phase of my life has not pushed me back into having to overly react with people. Because that was also, I told you what, all the things that people have told me at my last job. and you would be like, how? Like, why did you even think that that's a so? But yeah, I mean, the greatest part about this is that you don't have to compare blog posts. You get a new one every day over
And
at
I am gonna get back
yeah.
on it. But right now, if you have not read a blog post of mine, if you get started now, by the time, honey, you run out, I will have been back to once a day. But there are enough to keep you.
Listen, I'm gonna keep preaching it until it's so. I'm a prophet, I say. Uh, but there are blog posts every day at BibleStudyGirl.com. If you want to hit us up on the shows on the socials, hit us up at on Twitter at BibleStudyGirl, the number 2, on Instagram at underscore Bible Study Girl, and on Facebook at Bible Study Girl. If you have anything that you want us to pray about, we're not going to pray about them on the podcast. If you want to be a guest or anything like that, then hit us up at Bible Study Girl 2019 at gmail.com, because 2019 was the year of creation of the Bible Study Girl blog, and that will always be a very special year that we never want to forget. So make sure that you hit us up there. Keep in mind that it's not your waiters that preach, it's not Papa Murphy's that preach, but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.